Hello and welcome to the Confident Musicianing Podcast. My name is Eleanor and I am a British American oboist studying at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, literally my dream school. And it took me a long way to get there. I applied and auditioned for 12 schools in 3 different countries. It was a lot of hard work, but oh my gosh, so worth it. I want you to have the confidence to work hard in achieving your goals. So come with me as we go on this journey together. So sit down, pull up a chair, take a seat, or if you're on the go, welcome to the Confident Musicianing Podcast. Almost every time I do a Q&A on Instagram, I get asked about what I do when I am playing a piece and I am kind of tired of it, but I still have to keep practicing it. And how do I make it interesting so that I can keep practicing it without being bored? This is something that I have felt so many times. I think classical musicians generally can feel this way because the pieces that we play take time, and they take time to work through and get better, and they, sometimes take months or years to perfect. And through that time, sometimes we can be like, I am sick of this piece. I am sick of practicing it every day. To me now it's just notes. How do I make it interesting? And so today I think it's a really good opportunity to talk to you about 3 ways that I make my pieces more interesting after a while of playing them and practicing them, and when I am bored with them, but I still need to keep preparing them for something. So let's dive into it. The first thing is creating a story around it. This is an interesting idea because I feel like with classical music, there's so much to dive into, right? There's so many parts to it. There's so many pieces to it. It can be very, what's the word? Not difficult, but like intricate, right? It can also be difficult. But for us, I think it's crucial that we put a story towards it, and not necessarily the story that it had, because some pieces of classical music have stories to them, but maybe our own story. I remember for me, when I was preparing for my university auditions, I had to prepare the Mozart Oboe Concerto, the first movement, and that piece is difficult. It's definitely difficult, and I spent months and months and months and months doing it every single day, and for me, kind of the only way that I was able to keep doing it without getting extremely tired of it was to create a story around it. And the story changed as it developed. I think that this can also be helpful because maybe if the notes themselves might seem boring because you've been playing them a lot, a way to kind of make them more interesting is to change the story around them. So maybe at the beginning it's one thing, and then as you learn it and as maybe you get better at the notes, and maybe the notes get faster if you're making it needs to get faster, or maybe you're adding more depth, dynamics, then the story itself can change, and that can be really, really helpful as well. I remember in the same audition cycle, I had to prepare the second movement of the Saint-Saëns Oboe Sonata, and that was definitely an interesting piece because it's so visual to me. I think at the beginning of that audition cycle, I had one story in it, and I think it was because the audition cycle for me started in the autumn, so the story in it was had an autumn feel to it. It was walking through a forest with leaves falling down and beautiful colors, and then as it progressed, without kind of realizing it, the story in my mind, I was now walking through a winter wonderland because it was winter, and maybe I saw deer in the background, or maybe there was a pond that had iced over and I had ice skates. If you've heard that sonata, you can maybe visualize and understand why I might put ice skating to it. So whatever you are focusing on, whatever piece you're working on, and maybe you're sick of it, because let's be honest, we get sick of things sometimes, adding a story to it, being like, how can I add a story? And it could be something so vague, like walking through the woods. It could be something so specific, like maybe it's you and a friend that you are close to, and you guys are doing something you enjoy, and that might be something that you visualize. or something like that. So something that makes you excited to play it because of the story. And if you visualize a story, that can actually really help with the musicality of it, because you're now trying to get something across, right? And that can be very, very, very helpful in terms of just getting the music out and it being more than just notes, especially after months and months and months of preparing it. The next thing is finding different places to play it. I think that this can be so helpful, especially because, especially if all you have done is just practice it in one spot, in a practice room, over and over and over and over. And this piece maybe hasn't seen the light of day, or maybe it has, but not for a while, and you're bored of it. Then finding different places to play it can be just a great way to just put a spin on it. Even the act of getting an accompanist or a collaborative pianist and just working with them, because then you have another part of it come to life. If, say, you're working on a concerto or a sonata that has a pianist. If it's something else and there's other parts of the music, then working on that can be good as well. Even just playing around with it. If it's a piece that is maybe just for your instrument, maybe get another person who plays your instrument and play it together, or maybe play it in a round if that's something that you can do. Maybe if you really want to get into it and get technical, maybe understand the chord structure of it and have the other person just kind of play those chords as you play it. That can make a world of difference. I think for me, right now I'm working on a Bach sonata, and this is for me more of a practice technique, as I am just understanding kind of the chord structure and the notes and getting them even, because I feel like with Bach especially, there's just lots of notes, just a ton of notes. But what I found helpful is I play the right hand of the piano on oboe and I record that, and then I listen to that recording and I play my oboe with that. And that can be really helpful because all of a sudden I'm in a duet. And these notes mean more than just notes, right? I can hear, the other person, or the right hand of the piano is playing this while I'm doing this long note. They're doing this really, interesting, semi-quaver passage. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, this is interesting now. To me, before, this was just like a minim or a half note. Now it is, something that I can imagine the other part playing, right? That can be really helpful as well. Of course, if you want to, put on a recital, or just put on a performance, or just record yourself. For me, I record things and I put them on the internet, for example, this video or this podcast. So kind of working through that and just bringing life to it, playing it in different places, playing it in different settings with different people, even if, maybe you don't have a different setting or a different person to play it with. Record yourself playing a different part of it, if there is a different part of it, and then play with that recording. Okay, that, just doing all of that stuff, it can make, number one, practice more interesting, but also the piece more interesting, especially if you've gotten bored of it. We all get bored of pieces. The last thing that I think can be really helpful is watching master classes on it. This I didn't think of, and then when I sat down to write kind of my ideas for this video, for this episode, I was like, okay, I think I need to put this in, because I remembered as I was writing it in, I was like, oh yeah, I used to do this, because I remember when I auditioned for the youth orchestra that I was in the States, I really, really, really wanted to get good at the excerpts. Like, they, were all there, and there were quite a few, and I was like, I really want into this youth orchestra. Like, I want to get in, and so I want to be very good at the extracts, and I want to convey that I understand them. And so I spent quite a bit of time on YouTube just watching masterclasses. I remember there was one masterclass that I watched with Albrecht Meyer, who was, he's an oboist for the Berlin Philharmonic, and he was giving a masterclass about the exact excerpts that I had to prepare. And oh my gosh, did it not only make them less kind of boring, because I had been preparing them for a while, but they also just added a whole new spin on them and made me think about them in very different ways, and just ultimately got them better. And so if that is something that you are working on, and maybe you know, are like, okay, I'm kind of bored of this, but I've run out of ideas. You know what I mean? Like, I've run out of things to work on, but I know it's not good enough. Watching masterclasses on it can be really helpful. And I mean, depending on what you're playing, like I was playing very famous oboe excerpts. That is pretty easy to find masterclasses on. If maybe you're playing something that you can't necessarily find a masterclass or just a class on YouTube, then listening to recordings of the piece, and I know that this can sound a bit like, you know, everyone says that, but listening to different kinds of recordings, maybe like your favorite musician on this instrument, going to the like live performances of this piece if you can is also really helpful, or playing it for other people and getting their thoughts. And that's kind of ties into the second point of playing it in different places. But yeah, just getting people's thoughts on it, maybe playing it for your teacher. You're probably already playing it for your teacher, but playing it for different people and getting their different perspectives on it can be really helpful as well. But for me, especially when I was doing this audition for this youth orchestra that I really wanted to get into, I just kept doing, you know, watching masterclasses, just masterclass after masterclass of this. And I watched them multiple times. There were actually only about 3 or 4 videos on YouTube that I actually watched, but I watched them over and over and over. And every single time I got kind of a new idea about it. So, you know, even if you're in your mind, you're like, ugh, I don't know if this will be on YouTube, just look it up. Just look it up and see if it is, because it might be, right? It might be. So that is something that you can do as well. Just kind of listen to it, watch master classes, watch classes of it, you know, ask people for input about it. All of these things can maybe give you a new perspective of the piece so that you're not as bored of it, because we all get like this sometimes, and we all, I suppose, need this kind of just refresher on, you know, how to make the music we're working on and that we have been working on for months every single day interesting and exciting again, because we picked these pieces for a reason, you know. We picked them at one point for a reason. So kind of before we do the recap, diving into the ideas of practicing it, because we did touch on practicing things, and kind of understanding how we practice things. And maybe we do watch masterclasses, because that can be kind of considered practice in a way. And then also practicing it, and maybe practicing it with a story, all of these things that we touched on. Sometimes a great way to track these things, because it is very important to track things and plan things, is using a practice notebook or a practice journal. This way we know what we're actually practicing, and we know when we're done practicing, and then we can also look back and see what we have practiced, so that we're able to kind of go forward from there. And moving into this, something that I do when I plan my practice is use a notable practice journal. A notable practice journal is something that honestly has changed my practice for the better so much. A notable practice journal is a practice journal, and you can write the stuff that you have planned for your practice, and then you can also reflect. There's reflection questions, there's spaces to reflect, so that you can maybe look back and say, okay, I added this story to this piece and it made it more interesting. And then maybe if you go in the next practice session, you're like, hang on, what was that story that made it really interesting? You can just look in your journal and be like, oh yeah, I wrote it down. And then you can save time, and it's just better, and you have better efficient practice sessions. Oh my gosh, it's just so good, so good. So as soon as I realized that this journal was helping me, I knew that I needed to tell you about it, and I knew that I needed to get you a code, because aren't codes great? A discount code. So use code Eleanor15 for 15% off your practice journal. That is ELEANOR15 for 15% off on your practice journal. And get yourself a practice journal, and yeah, just like write things down, plan, reflect, have overall more structured, focused, and effective practice sessions. Because let's be honest, isn't that what we all want? I never recommend anything that I don't absolutely love. This discount code is an affiliate code, which means I do receive a commission with no extra cost to you. All right, let's get into a recap, because I think all of these points I'm so excited to tell you about because they are so helpful for me. So let's just recap them before the end of this episode so that you can remember them easier when you get into your next session. So the first thing is creating a story around it, like literally anything you want. Just something that maybe helps you remember it, something that maybe there is already a story around the piece. So maybe visualizing that more and changing the story as you change as well. It doesn't have to be the same story, whatever helps you. The next thing is finding different places to play it, whether that is maybe a recital space, or maybe it's just outside the practice room. Maybe it is with someone else, with an accompanist, maybe just with a recording of you playing a different part and then you playing, with that recording. Just finding different places and ways of playing the piece. And the last thing is watching masterclasses on it, or maybe going to a performance or listening to it, or all of these things, kind of getting some input on the piece and not just you in a practice room playing over and over and getting bored. So these are 3 things that I hope that you have found helpful for making whatever piece you're working on and you find boring a little less boring and a little more engaging. Because let's be honest, as musicians, we focus on the same stuff over and over again, and anything that can help it be more engaging is really good. It's really good. All right, that is about it for this episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed this, please do let me know. Whether it is subscribing, following, liking, commenting, whatever it is, depending on what platform you're watching this or listening to this on. And as always, all of the links to do with this will be in the show notes from the blog post that goes with this, as well as the link for you to get your Notable practice journal. And please do use the code Eleanor15 for 15% off so you can get that discount and start getting better focused practice sessions. All right, that is about it for this. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for watching or listening, and I will see you next time. All right, take care. Bye-bye.